A 20-ton excavator is stuck deep in a mud pit, its arms stretching skyward as a final display of defiance. For those in the know, does this count as a water-damaged vehicle? Right now, finders keepers applies to whoever rescues it, so a Russian finders team quickly arrived on the scene. To ensure success, they gathered various tow trucks, bulldozers, excavators, tractors, and even a Soviet-era Gaz-66. After a 2-minute heated discussion, they decided to first have an excavator clear the mud in the ditch to find a load-bearing point for the winch cable. The captain claimed they spent $5,500 United States dollars on different shackles to ensure a rigorous towing setup. Once the bottom of the mired machine was cleared, members fixed the winch cable to the lower stress point. Since the mud sticking to the body added weight, the team had to switch from a single line to a double-line winch to increase load capacity. It's fair to say that behind the fierce exterior of the fighting nation lies a very meticulous side. A truck loaded with logs arrived, and a member operated a hook to pile them at the mud pit's entrance. However, the swinging hook almost sent bystanders to an early grave, clearly showing a novice driver at the controls. The piled logs were lashed together to increase friction for the winch lines during the tow. Next, cables were fixed to the bulldozer's bucket, and the gas line was pulled out and secured, not sparing the tractors or dozers. The team utilized every vehicle at once. The winch lines snapped taut, and the rescue officially began. You can clearly feel the excavator in the pit slowly rising, while members constantly adjusted the tension points to nip any potential accidents in the bud. As every towing vehicle floored the gas for a final push, the mud-submerged excavator was successfully dragged onto the road. The captain gave a thumbs up to celebrate the victory. So what do you all think of this rescue? A dump truck's rear wheels sank straight into a swamp because the driver mistook the brake for the gas pedal. The truck instantly began to tilt, and the driver scrambled out to save his skin, while the spotter stood there with hands on hips, looking totally unfazed since he figured it wasn't his faulty directing to keep the truck from being swallowed by the mud. The driver quickly opened the bed and dumped all the sand inside. On one hand, this lightened the load, and on the other, the massive pile of sand helped stabilize the soft ground nearby. A nearby bulldozer rushed over to help, leveling the sand bit by bit to make the surface as firm as possible for the upcoming rescue. During this, dozens of other dump trucks arrived to pour even more sand. Fearing the trapped vehicle would be completely consumed by the swamp, once things felt ready, the bulldozer tried to yank the truck out with a tow rope, but reality proved tougher than expected. Even with the dozer floored, the truck wouldn't budge an inch. A clever driver spotted the issue. The rear wheels were buried too deep, so they quickly adjusted the plan. First, the bulldozer moved to the rear to lift the truck's bed with its bucket, raising the back end. Then, everyone started filling the gap with dry sand so the rear wheels could regain friction during the pull. Feeling confident, the bulldozer moved back to the front for another go, and wouldn't you know it, it actually worked. The trapped truck was pulled out in one shot. So, what do you all think of this rescue? A bulldozer at work ended up driving straight into the river because the driver was distracted by watching short videos. Looking down from a drone, it's clear the bulldozer is stuck in a tight spot and the situation is quite dire, while the driver is so terrified he won't even step out. Upon hearing the news, the contractor quickly dispatched another bulldozer for a rescue mission. Instead of just using brute force to pull it out immediately, the rescue operator started working on one side of the trapped machine to divert the water and prevent it from being submerged. This step requires extreme caution, as any mistake could lead to the rescuer getting stuck themselves. However, the operator handled it like it was nothing. Turns out, he's a top graduate from the Lanxiang Technical Academy. After clearing one side, he moved to the other to reduce the water volume in the middle area. It's obvious this guy knows his physics. Unlike some who just try to yank things out, the contractor supervised closely throughout, because more than the cost of the machine, he was worried about the safety of his brother-in-law trapped inside. Once the prep work was finished, the rescue bulldozer used a tow rope and pulled the other one out in a single go. It must be said the rescue was incredibly smooth thanks to the operator's professionalism. So, what do you guys think of this? An excavator was working when the driver, trying to show off, accidentally got stuck deep in a swamp. Looking at the situation, thinking it could get out on its own was pure fantasy, and the driver was so terrified he'd already bolted home to change his pants. Just then, a tractor hauled over a massive century-old log and placed it right in front of the trapped machine. While I was standing there totally confused, a Sani excavator arrived in a cloud of dust, and that's when I realized what the log was for. It was partly to keep the rescue machine steady when powering through and partly to help pull the trapped one by increasing friction. Honestly, that's some incredibly thoughtful planning. The rescue excavator didn't waste a second and started digging, while a crowd of onlookers watched with great interest. Judging by the constant mud being scooped out, you could tell this machine was buried deep, and the engine compartment below was likely already soaked. So, I have a question for everyone. Would you consider this trapped excavator a water-damaged vehicle? If you know the answer, leave a comment. After digging for about 48 minutes, the rescue machine slid those logs under the tracks of the stuck excavator. Remarkably, the trapped machine could still start up normally. That quality is pretty impressive. Once the logs were in place, the buckets of both machines hooked onto each other to pull together. And finally, after half an hour of struggling, the excavator was successfully dragged out of the swamp. So, what do you all think of this rescue? A dump truck loaded with 50 tons of soil ended up tilting on a slope due to the driver's improper handling. The driver was scared stiff because if the truck flipped, the consequences would be unthinkable. A nearby excavator rushed to the rescue, using its bucket to brace the truck bed and prevent an accident while the driver seized the moment to jump out and call for backup. Soon, a large excavator floored it to the scene, kicking up clouds of dust dozens of meters high. Clearly, the operator was tapping into some superpowers again. Upon arrival, one excavator used its bucket to brace the side of the truck, while the other was responsible for clearing out the dirt to lighten the load. Honestly, teamwork is the key to any rescue. But clearing the soil requires extreme caution since one wrong move could flip the truck. However, the operator said it was no big deal. Turns out he's a graduate of the Lanqiang Technical Institute. If this happened back home, I feel like the dump truck driver could just floor the gas and get out himself without wasting money on a rescue. Don't you guys agree? Once most of the dirt was cleared, the driver asked the excavator to brace the truck bed so he could drive it away. He was still terrified of an accident during this part, but luckily, with a stomp on the gas, the truck successfully broke free. This trip was a total loss for the driver, and he likely had to pay out of pocket too. After the rescue, the excavator left with its head held high. Word is the excavator charged $100 for this job. Do you all think this operator was a bit of a ripoff? A 40-ton cement tanker truck flipped down a roadside slope because the driver fell asleep at the wheel, leaving him needing a literal miracle to get out of this mess. Soon, a large domestic excavator rushed to the scene, but given the situation, an excavator alone couldn't possibly finish the rescue mission, so the driver spent another $2,000 to rent a massive crane. This trip isn't just a loss, he's likely digging deep into his own pockets. Once the crane arrived and deployed its hydraulic outriggers for stability, the excavator used its tracks to crawl down the slope toward the overturned truck. Getting close, the excavator used its bucket to level the dirt under the tanker, partly to prevent a second rollover and partly to prep a buffer for the lift. Meanwhile, the crane extended its boom and lowered the hook while the rescue team searched for the truck's load-bearing points. A step requiring strict judgment because any accident during the lift would be disastrous. After finishing its prep work, the excavator pressed its bucket against the tank, waiting for the crane's signal to start, but strangely, time ticked by with no action. It turns out the team decided using just one crane was too risky and called in a second crane from the city. By now, 8 hours had passed since the flip, and everyone thought 2 cranes would make quick work of it, but the new crane arrived without its counterweights and refused to help out of safety concerns. With no other choice, the rescue team called it a day, leaving the excavator driver still weighing down below, oblivious to the fact that it was over. On the bright side, the tanker owner didn't have to pay a dime since the truck was still stuck down there. So, how do you think we should rescue an overturned cement tanker like this if it happened back home? An excavator was driving normally when the road suddenly collapsed, causing it to flip and roll straight down to the bottom of a cliff. Luckily, the operator jumped out just before it rolled, so a tragedy was avoided. After getting the distress signal, Ross and Baldy rushed to the scene in their 1,000-horsepower recovery trucks, knowing every second counts for the locals. Upon arrival, they met the owner, a young guy of only 70 years old. Skipping the small talk, he led them to the crash site. The road along the way was clearly a mess, and 3 seconds later, they spotted the overturned excavator. After a quick brainstorm, the trio realized they couldn't just pull it straight up. The machine was so heavy that a snapped cable would be a disaster. They had to guide it downward instead. Ross and Baldy drove the trucks to the slope below the wreck, while Ross secured the cables. Baldy whipped up a plan. Use the winches from both trucks to drag the excavator down. They got to work, and once hooked up, both trucks pulled together. Sure enough, the excavator started moving. It was slow going but very safe. As it descended, Baldy adjusted the tension, letting momentum flip the machine back over. He flashed a mysterious smile. Everything was under control. Once they got it down, the next task was uprighting it. They positioned one truck diagonally across and used another construction machine to help flip the heavy excavator back on its tracks. After 48 minutes of hard work, they nailed it. The owner was thrilled because you don't see such a professional crew every day. So, what do you guys think about this rescue?